What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric G. Tabor. I hope you're all having a good Tuesday. We are going to be talking through tonight's slate, and I'm just going to say, as crazy as we think the NBA is, I'm just going to warn everybody, it's going to be crazier until Thursday night, probably actually more realistically Friday, because there's sometimes after hours trades. There's a lot of trades and stuff going on. To mix it with the COVID and the rest and the injury era the late swap, it's just going to be a little bit of a grind. So everything we say now, a lot of it might not be as relevant later, but we will do our best for a first look. And I'm coming. I had a good night on FanDuel. Did not do well on DraftKings. Thank you, Gordon Hayward. Unfortunately, getting injured again. It's always rough when you lose a player right away. At least you feel like you can go on with your night. And what I had a bunch of Hayward lineups that already had Mitch Robinson in it, but I switched all my Hayward lineups basically. I tried to switch over to Mitch Robinson to try to get at least some difference. And it did help me cash in a few lineups I wasn't going to cash in. So that's my night. Cheats, how are you? And tell me what you think of this.
My night was similar. I ended up losing, and then I played the showdown slate, the Knicks Utah, and I locked in Alec Burks. So that was not good.
Oh, that was crazy. He missed. What did he miss? Like his first 8 shots, I think it was, or something.
Yes, yeah. Not the best.
I swear that if it happened again, I would do it again.
Yeah, but I had I had Mitch Rob in there, and if what's his name and Burks had done anything, I would have actually done pretty well in those showdowns actually.
Yeah, no, that's fun. I mean, look, I'm going to start getting into more of the showdowns. Thank you, Carmen, for the idea. Also, shout out to Carmen. Hey, other people might go, hey, you won $100, whatever. To hit a little parlay for 10-1 is always a fun thing to do. So congrats to Carmen over there. And hopefully we can keep that going. The bets last night, the straight bets were undefeated. I won every one of them that I posted. And the other bets I had for the players were about 50. I think that there was like one, I won one more than I lost. So it wasn't ideal for the player prop bets, but it was a weird night. So I'll take it on that kind of a night. And I will continue to post, by the way, my prize picks and my other stuff. I'm trying to add everything we can to really give you guys an idea of exactly what we're doing. That's what we're talking about is true DFS. So this is going to be, a sign of exactly what we're doing. Anyway, Sheets, anything else before we get into the slate?
No, let's get into it. This could be another possible NBA Finals matchup.
Here we go. Every time Phoenix plays, it seems like lately they're playing somebody who could be contending.
Playing somebody good, I guess.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into it. Why don't you pull up your screen and we will go game by game here. And that is the first game of the night, which I think is going to probably mean we shouldn't play much from it. Now, no one else is going to, so you could do the big T and try to stack it up because it's a spot where no one's going to attack. The game should be close. It's very interesting to see Phoenix as an underdog now. It's always interesting to see Phoenix as an underdog. I can already promise you guys, even with the fact that this is a second of a back-to-back against a really good Philly team that's hot, I'm just always going to keep betting Phoenix right now. I think they're too good of a team. They're a freaking machine.
I want to talk to you about them for a minute. So why are they so good?
They're
awesome. But what is it? What's happened that's made them so good?
They won the West last year and they were in the finals. I mean,
right? No. I mean before. So is Chris Paul just really?
Chris Paul is a guy who like literally might, he wasn't even really in conversations to start he was a little bit in conversations to start the All-Star game, but I mean, you have to get through Ja Morant and all these guys who do so much for their team. Chris Paul could win the MVP this year. It's not out of the question. He's been that good. Devin Booker is absolutely he's one of the best players in the NBA. He's one of the best 20 at least. And you get what happens is you get, 6 guys or 4 guys who are top, I guess 3 guys who are top 50 NBA players with a bunch of good role players. And like Mikal Bridges may not be a top NBA player, but he's as elite at what he does as anybody in the sport. He's an awesome 3-and-D player. They play terrific team defense. DeAndre Ayton, even without him this year, they were really, really good. And they have just a lot of really, really good players. They play their role. They have an identity. I think that's really the most important thing. And they have some continuity, which most teams don't have. So they're going to keep winning games. They're just a really tough team.
And look, you trace it back, like even before last year, the year before, the Suns made that huge run in the bubble, and had a really, really nice, they almost made it in there.
Yep.
And then, Chris Paul, because I think Chris Paul has this impression, I guess, of being some crotchety older guy or whatever it is, but guys freaking, I mean, look, you can't dispute it, and then when Chris Paul came, I'm like, well, that's not going to work, because Devin Booker, you can't share the ball between these two guys. but they've just made it work, man. And they're just, like you said, and between the team defense and Bridges doing whatever, and Jay Crowder doing his thing, and Aiden, I mean, again, once Aiden decides that, even though he was the number one, or what is he, number one or number two pick or whatever?
Number one, yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to be like the best center in basketball, but he can just do his thing. I mean, he's perfectly reasonable. You know,
they found the right guys. This isn't Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan back in the Clipper days. This is like the first team that maybe suits Chris Paul perfectly. Everybody else will fall in line with what he does. He's more than happy to give up all of the shares of everything, but they all, like, he was on DeAndre Ayton's ass all year last year, and he literally has turned him into, forget the numbers. He's just a much better player than he gets credit for. They're all much better, and it's because of Chris Paul.
And on the other side of the ball, we'll get into that. You know, it's so fun. I don't care if it's a 10-game slate. This goes 2 hours. This could go 2 hours. But and how good has Embiid been?
Oh, he's spectacular. I mean, that's the funniest thing. Like Chris Paul, whenever you talk about like NBA top players, like you don't know where to put him. Like, is he a top? He's not, like, nobody. Everybody goes, of course, he's not a top 5 player. That's how they say it. But if you talk about your impact on a team, which is what you should be talking about, maybe he is. But Embiid is basically, when he's healthy, I mean, I don't know. If they played a series, I would take Embiid to outplay Jokic. Jokic has been the best player.
I'll tell you this, I'd like to see it.
I would love to see it. It's probably never going to happen because they're playing in other conferences. And I don't think Denver's on their way to a title anytime soon. But I mean,
they were last year, but that was it.
What?
They were last year.
Denver?
Yeah.
No, they lost Murray. They had no real chance after that.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's really hurt. And they lost Michael Porter Jr. They lost their second and third best players. So they're really in a bad way. But look, Embiid is a monster. He's the only play in this game for DFS purposes, in my opinion. Everybody else, there's a lot of blah plays, but you're going to see as we go through this slate how many better plays there are on the slate. Like Jay Crowder is another one at 4,100 who, again, I'm a fan of using him on nights like last night. Now it's weird that he happened to score 35 fantasy points. I didn't know he was going to do that. But on a smaller slate with a guy without the massive ceiling. But again, he did put up 35, yesterday. He's a part of their, when they're in closer games, he tends to have big games. So maybe you could include Jay Crowder into the mix. The weird one I would play against any other matchup would be DeAndre Ayton, because he didn't play many minutes on the back-to-back on the front end because he got in foul trouble. So JaVale McGee went nuts because of the foul trouble. But I think tonight, like, I just can't do it against Embiid quite, but I don't think it's like the worst idea. There's a lot of guys in this game who I'm just sort of like, meh. The only ones who are really going to break a slate, who I might be afraid of, like, not afraid of not having because no one else will have him either, is Devin Booker. We've seen it. The problem is he's got to deal with Thibault on defense, and maybe Devin Booker is in contention to play it. I mean, to be in play tonight, but it's a tough situation all around. I don't know what else to say. I just don't think this is a DFS game. And Embiid is the only guy I would really consider probably at this moment, with maybe a little shout out to Jay Crowder. But the problem is, if this game was in Phoenix, I would be like, yeah, let's take a shot here, because we can always adjust later on and we can switch over guys and all that stuff. But we can't really do that with it being the first game, and it's a standalone game too. So that's my take. I don't really have a bunch of guys.
I totally agree. I think Embiid's a really, really good play. And I think everybody else is just obviously unplayable, but just on a 10-game slate, I just can't imagine getting to any of it.
Yeah, I'm the same. All right, Indy and Atlanta. This is a game where I would really. So we're going to need to know about, obviously, Malcolm Brogdon, who's eternally questionable, and I don't really think anybody's going to trade for him at this point. So I don't really know what Indy's doing. Maybe you just tell him sit out for the whole year, but like, it is weird if he doesn't play. Sabonis in this matchup should be like a phenomenal play. Now, there's a good chance they get run out of the building in Atlanta. There's a good chance they can get run out of the building in any matchup. But with their lineup as currently constructed, I do want to take some shots at these guys, but I don't know who to say yet, because I want to know if Dwayne Washington starts. Is it going to be, are we going to get a little more Isaiah Jackson in our life tonight? Are we going to see Kiefer Sykes starting, who's currently projected to play like 1 minute? We just don't know who's playing. And I guess without knowing who's playing, it's really hard. The one guy who does stand out to me, other than Sabonis, is Duarte. People keep saying, they'll say, look at Duarte's numbers. We keep thinking this guy's going to do something. I'll tell you what, Karis LeVert and his 95% usage rate, or whatever the hell, being gone, is going to open up Chris Duarte quite a bit. And you're going to get Dwayne Washington potentially. So there's going to be some value here. It's just, I want to know what happens with Brogdon, Jackson, and Terry Taylor. All the guys who have made and cost me the most money the last little bit, Jackson and Taylor, that is. And then, in this game, it's a great matchup on the other side too, but I don't know that we need to play these guys at these prices. I think Trae Young is a terrific play, and he's cheap enough. So I think Trae Young, I think he's actually Trae Young probably, I should be a little higher on him, but that's how I would do it. Sabonis and what's his name, and Duarte with Trae Young are my first look thoughts. But again, it could change drastically if you see these other guys like Sykes or Washington in there and Brogdon's out or something like that. I might change my tune. And I think everybody in like, I could name every Hawk and they're all in play at their prices. One of the guys who was my star, that's what really did it for me on Friday when I thought I was going to win everything, was Bogdanovic with Gallinari out. And Bogdanovic put up 41 fantasy points at 5K. He's 5,400 now. It's a good matchup. But realistically on this slate, the priorities would be Trae Young, if Brogdon's out, Sabonis, and Duarte. That's where I'm at in this one. How about you?
On the Atlanta side, I think the guy who stands out as the best value is going to be Kevin Herter at 4,300. It's not anything I'm going to stumble over anybody and beat on anybody to get to, but at 4,300, he looks to be pretty good. DeAndre Hunter, good enough at 4,600. But like you said, Bogdan's in there. There are bodies. The Capella thing is it's a little annoying, right? They've just decided that he's not going to play 30 minutes anymore. That just seems to be the bottom line.
It coincides with their winning too, which is probably
right. Well, yeah. You can't complain, right?
Yeah.
That's my son. It's so funny. Matt and I we were watching something. Matt had like DFS action or something like that, and they would run the ball and they'd run for like 50 yards. What are you guys doing? I'm like, well, he ran for 50 yards.
That sort of sounds like our I love our Discord chat, but every now and then there's like what is the coach doing pulling these guys? I'm like, well, they're trying to win the game. They're not just trying to get fantasy points.
What an idiot! What a stupid play! They just scored a touchdown.
Right.
So I'm sorry they don't want to make your lineups do better, but so I don't really have too much on him. I think Trae Young is fine. 9,800 seems perfectly reasonable. He's one of the better. And then on Indiana, I do like what you said. I think that if Brogdon's out, I think Sabonis is definitely will probably get a bump. And then, like you said, you got to see who started. You get not Justin Holiday. Why did I say that? The other guy starting, Dwayne Washington starting, or Kiefer Sykes starting or something like that. Maybe you can play these guys, but it's gonna have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and if you want to play the blowout narrative, super large field, I'm just gonna say this all the time. It's on the road, so don't like it as much. But because of any kind of blowout possibilities, it's not just a blowout, because when I say blowouts, it's not like, oh, they're down by 30, they're taking out all their starters. It's like when you're down like 20 and you need some sort of a spark, nobody's more of a potential spark than Lance Stevenson. But that's a 150 lineup type of thing because there's too much good value today. You can't do it like in a regular lineup, in my opinion, and expect good results. But again, we've seen Lance do it on slates like this before. So whatever. You ready to go to the next one? Because that's going to be another big game to target here.
Well, since I put up my projections, Harden went from questionable to out. So
you think he's getting traded?
Wow.
I think there's it's so funny, Sheets. There's a lot of talk that the Simmons trade for him is going to happen.
Simmons?
Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons?
It actually fits in perfectly with Brooklyn because they can't sign. They'd have to sign Harden to his extension on the offseason, and Harden would be making, by the time he's 37 or 38, I think he'd be making $60 million a year if they want to give him the max extension.
I don't know why anybody would want Ben Simmons. I don't know.
No, I kind of hear what you're saying, but like Brooklyn is desperate right now. They're losing. They're getting crushed every game.
What's amazing here is that this game, this went from at the beginning of the season could have been an Eastern Conference Finals to now it's like a lottery pick game. It's just like ridiculous.
No, I hear you, and but for DFS purposes, I think there's a lot of stuff you can do here.
Well, for DFS purposes, with Harden out and all these guys out, hasn't this just become like play five nets? Isn't that usually what you have to do here?
I think it's too big of a slate to play that many.
Kyrie is out too, right? It's the whole team's out.
Yeah, but it's the prices are not like as appealing, and they can play a lot of bodies. Now does somebody probably get there? Like Kessler Edwards would be, again, he can let us down again. It's really hard to know without the starting lineup, but Kessler Edwards, like Blake Griffin is going to show up as a really good play.
Yeah, someone else can play him. I'm kind of interested in playing like James Johnson.
Yeah. James Johnson, Kessler Edwards, Patty Mills, I have as my best plays here. And then potentially you could consider Bembry and Brown. But I honestly, I'd like to see the starting lineup when it comes out, and I'm very curious what it's going to look like. But I think Kessler Edwards is probably the guy who I'm leading, which I feel really weird saying, but without everybody else there, I think he's going to be forced to take some shots.
You could get a Day'Ron Sharpe game with Claxton out. I mean,
yeah, that's possible. They also, but again, I think that Johnson and Griffin will eat up those minutes too. So it's kind of tricky. I mean, we'll say about Blake that he's been pretty good lately, even with these guys in. He's a little more expensive than we're used to paying for him this year, but I'm sort of with you. I like James Johnson and I like Kessler Edwards and get the extra savings, even though there is definitely a huge bust path for both those guys. But if you are going to stack this up on the other side, Marcus Smart is too cheap for an awesome matchup at 5,100. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, while being priced semi-appropriately, there are 70s in these guys' games. And I think Jaylen Brown is starting to find himself a little bit. I really like Jaylen Brown. I think one of those two is a reasonable run back with Marcus Smart against, if you're going to play the Mills, Griffin, or Mills, Johnson, and Edwards or something like that. That would be what I would be looking at in terms of a game stack, because this is definitely
what's the spread in this game with Hard now?
It's only Boston by 8.5, and it seems a little too light. But we've seen Brooklyn at times be pretty pesky when they've had their guys out in the past. But Boston's playing well, Brooklyn is not, and Brooklyn has literally none of their stars in this game. It's like it might be just the Patty Mills show, where you get 30 real life points out of him, and he puts up 45 or 50 fantasy points. That's definitely on the table.
Bruce Brown. I mean, the other thing I would say about this game is if you really like something in the 7:00 game. Well, what I was going to say is that I don't even think they're going to release their starters to like 7:20. I really think we've seen this before.
Yeah. Well, I think that Kessler Edwards will start. I think Patty Mills will start. I think Bembry will probably start, and one of Johnson or Griffin, potentially both. But if it's Day'Ron Sharpe, then you want to be in that Day'Ron Sharpe business. You know what I mean? If it's David Duke Jr., you might want to take a shot there because we've seen big games out of him.
If these are the centers, that I mean, should we play Robert Williams or something like that?
I mean, that's like Robert Williams is a fantasy producer. It's really hard for me to justify paying 7,200 for him on this particular slate. But again, I mean, we've seen him put up plenty of 40s and even 50s before, and this is a great matchup. But I just am not finding myself getting there personally.
Okay, that's fair enough. It
could change, but that's where I'm at right now. All right, Clippers and Memphis to a much more, I guess, normal-ish game. I'm struggling with this one. Finding anything I want to do except for maybe Desmond Bane or Jaren Jackson Jr., which feels more like they should be like 1%ers, and they'll probably be closer to 10%, at least as early projections have them. And Ja's always fine. The Clippers actually play reasonably better defense than you would expect in terms of they slow the game down as well. But I'm interested in a little bit in then the Ja or Jaren Jackson or Desmond Bane, but not like especially. And I don't really have anybody on the Clippers who I think is particularly awesome. You could play the reverse like Amir Coffey thing, whose minutes have sort of dwindled, but we've seen him put up, he still put up 37, 45, and 43 over the last 7 games. And they do have more bodies back, but I think I just skip it because Covington and Powell should be there. I just think I'm going to skip the Clippers.
Well, so here's the thing. I mentioned this to you yesterday. So Norman Powell made his debut for the Clippers. He played 24 minutes and scored 28 real life points.
Jesus.
Okay. Yeah. And
it must have been at home. It was at home. I'm telling you, this guy, when he plays in LA, goes nuts. Sorry, go ahead. And not to mention that he developed some weird chemistry again with Covington. He had a couple of assists to him, and even the announcers were commenting on that. And Powell, basically, they let him run like more than they were expecting, whatever. And the starters, what happened? They were down like 20 in that game or something, and they made like a big run. And this is what I understand what they try to do, but it's just always
freaking happens this way. Like they cut a lead from 22 down to 13, and you know that, or to 11. You know they're exhausted. You're supposed to bring the freaking starters back in for no other reason than they're freaking fresher. And and they've said, "Oh, let these guys finish it off," and they ended up like giving it all back, and they were down 22 by the time they gave up on them. In any case, the reason I bring it up is Reggie Jackson was kind of like I don't say bench, but they were slow to bring him back in towards the end of that. So I do think that Powell is going to cut into a bunch of Clipper stuff, and he could be good he could be good himself. All this is one long way of saying I don't think I like anything at all from the Clippers. The Memphis side, the only guy that I would add that you didn't mention on Memphis is not something that's a huge priority. Is Brandon Clark's cheap enough, so I might consider that. And you could always play Ja. So if I get to some Ja, cool. But it's the whole game is not particularly exciting.
Yeah, Zaire Williams is the one I would have thought for the spend down because he's going to play the minutes. But I don't think I'm going to need to do that on this kind of a slate personally. I do like the Zaire Williams kid quite a bit, by the way, though. I think he's pretty good. He just doesn't.
All right, so here we go.
You got to go.
First of all, I want to, before I forget. So Sengun had a pretty nice game the other day, but just to let you guys know, they took him out to close. They didn't want him in at the end when they wanted offense, and they took him out with like 5 minutes to go in the game, and they didn't put him back in. And Houston was making a run too. I don't know exactly why. I mean, he seemed to have having a good enough game, but just
because the coach said they don't want to play him and Wood together, which he keeps breaking.
Okay.
But that's the reason why, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I say that. I mean, he still projects to be 25, 26 minutes. He's going to probably be 25 to 30% owned. And he rates to be one of the better value plays on the slate. Porter, okay, I guess. Tate, okay, I guess. Christian Wood, okay, I guess. But Sengun would be my favorite. And on New Orleans, as I alluded to earlier, I mean, you have Nicole Alexander-Walker being traded. You have Josh Hart being traded. There was speculation that Jackson Hayes was going to be included in that too, but he's still there. Now Hayes he could have been my hero. I mean, I was like kind of steamed that they only had him in 28 minutes, but they obviously took him out to put Valanciunas back in. I think Valanciunas might have had foul trouble or something.
They play together a lot.
Yeah, but not in this game.
Yeah.
In this game, they let Hayes. They substituted Valanciunas for Hayes with 6 minutes to go, and Hayes didn't come back in until the game was decided with like a minute to go in the game. But he played really, really well. That's 2 games in a row that he played really, really well. So if you're telling me that there were rotations where you could play that they could play him with Valanciunas, given that Hart's gone, Alexander Wilson, whatever it is, I think that Hayes is going to be probably an extremely strong play. I'll let you decide about Herbert Jones. And what other guys from New Orleans? You have the.
I think we're getting way too deep into these guys. Like,
you think so? Okay.
I mean, we've already named like 70 players, and we're not even like to a lot of the best games yet. So that's what I'm worried about. Sengun.
Well, I just think with those guys both out, I don't know. I think the New Orleans guys are going to be really, really good.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's only really Hart and Walker, kind of. You know what I mean? Like,
I think Graham's a good price at 5,200.
I think Graham's okay. I do. I think that Brandon Ingram is the priority by far. No interest in Jackson Hayes. No interest in Sengun.
Really? Okay. All right.
I don't need to pay 5,500 for these guys. Like, I know I may change my tune later on because I like both of them, especially Sengun. I really like him. What are we looking for? Like, even when he plays the minutes, like he can actually get there, but like with Wood also playing, you really were going to want like 7Xs out of guys in this price range.
Okay.
And even when he's played well lately, he's like 5.5Xing these price tags. If you want the ceiling, you play, in my opinion, on Houston, you play Kevin Porter Jr. That guy has a monstrous ceiling. And Jalen Green, I think, is coming into his own a little bit more. And I like them in this matchup. But for New Orleans, like one of the great things for them about Hart before was that Hart doesn't need to like take shots or anything. So I don't think that he's like giving a giant boost. It's really minutes. Like Alexander Walker does take up a lot of usage. And Hart takes up some, don't get me wrong, like he does. But I would say the priorities would be Ingram, Graham, and Joval, I guess. And if you want to mix in Jackson Hayes now that he's not just center eligible, I think that's fine. And I think that Herbert Jones is fine, but I just don't think this is the right slate to do that.
Okay. Dallas, Detroit.
Yeah. And it's probably important to remember before we all rush to New Orleans, remember that Ingram has been out this year a lot, and these guys take up way less than Ingram does. So the prices are sort of already baked in to what's happening. Go ahead, Cheats, with Detroit and Dallas. You can start that one off if you want to.
Yeah. So you have Luka is going to project to be, I have to tell you, he's going to project to be a really, really good play. And I got to hand it to DraftKings. I mean, they priced all these guys up the whole season. They make it tough. I mean, to play they have all these guys over 12K like every day. And that's why, you want to play Steph Curry, you can get him at freaking 10% every night. You want to play Jokic, you can get him at 10% every night. But you're going to have to really figure out how to make your lineups work to do it. And I kind of like it. So he's exactly in that spot. He grace to be a really, really strong spend up in a game where they're probably going to be pretty healthy favorites, especially if Cade is out. I presume Dallas is going to be a pretty healthy favorite. So there's blowout risk or whatever. But I definitely think that that Luka for me is my top. I mean, I think I like him more than Jokic. I don't know. They're very. I don't know. I like them both.
Yeah.
In any case, I like him. I think that Powell is going to project well because I think Kleber is out.
No, I have Kleber as in.
Oh, you do?
Okay. I have Kleber as the best point per dollar in this game.
Oh, no wonder then. Okay. So I have his questionable, right? Oh, he's upgraded to probable now. There it is. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I like him. Powell. I don't know. You said that same thing with all three of these guys, like Powell, Kleber, and Chris, right?
I don't think Powell's ever in play on a slate like this at 4,700. I actually think it'd be like a really, really, really bad play.
I'm just even saying like just apportioning the minutes between those guys.
Oh yeah. That's true. Yeah.
That's pretty much it. I mean, look, if Cunningham is out, I think I'll go to what's his name, Detroit. I guess Jeremy Grant's going to have to be a good play, among other guys, right? If Cade is out, I don't know if I'd play Cade at 8,200 though. Yeah, Jeremy Grant, I guess, is my best play, but nothing on Detroit really excites me in this game, honestly.
Yeah, if Jeremy Grant has a game, so be it. Let him beat me. Like, the guy cannot score anything, can't do anything. So his high over the last, what we have now, 2.5 months, and he's high as 31 fantasy points. No, thank you. It's a good matchup for Isaiah Stewart. I don't think I could ever get around to actually playing him on this kind of a slate, but it's fine. The only one who's like the one weird sneaky play if you're playing 150 would be Kelly Olynyk for me. But I don't really like it. I just think that it's just an option. Corey Joseph, if Cade Cunningham's out, is okay. I don't like this at all. Like, I just think they're going to get smashed. I think Luka's a great play as always, and he's really turned it on, which we sort of knew would happen. It's pretty hilarious that literally a couple of weeks ago, people are talking about like, oh, who would you take going forward between Luka? I'm just like, God, Luke, you guys don't realize how good Luka actually is. I like Luka and I like Kleber. Kleber's been going nuts, by the way, lately. I don't think we can necessarily count on him doing that all the time, but they definitely seem to be favoring him over the other guys. And sure, he had the overtime the last time out, but in 24 minutes a couple nights ago, he put up 39 fantasy points. He's interesting to me, but I don't think that as a center spot, I probably am mostly just going to use Luka from this game. If Cade's out, the best play for me on the other side, like Joseph's kind of interesting. I mentioned Jackson's kind of interesting, but I think the guy you look to is Sadiq Bey. And Sadiq Bey is just, at this point, let's just trust the numbers. You know what I mean? He's doing so much more than Jeremy Grant is. He's a better player, not a better real life. Like if you're contending for a title, Jeremy Grant's the guy you'd want over him, but he's their young star that they've got up and coming, or one of them. And he would be the one, but I don't think realistically I'm even getting to that on this slate. It's just too big of a slate. How about your Knicks in Denver? Does it feel like
it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know why the Players Association ever agrees to this stuff. You can't have teams play back-to-back games going into Denver the second day,
especially when they're coming from Utah.
It's ridiculous, and this has been known since like the 80s, and it's ridiculous. I'm playing nobody from the Knicks. Probably gonna I'll probably end up with some Jokic just as almost like a pivot, but they're going to get smoked. I don't know. I have no interest in the Knicks here. Look, and people say, "Oh, why is Kemba sitting?" Because he can't play back to back. You can't do it. Like at least they did it right. They sat him in that game. Did they get away with the win last night or no?
No. Utah covered.
Utah did cover after all that. I guess you know what? Maybe you play a Kemba because he at least didn't play last night. That's actually maybe that's not the worst play in the world to play someone like Kemba because he could eat up the minutes and even if the game doesn't stay close, maybe they let him play. Because he didn't play last night. I don't know. Maybe that's that because he certainly hadn't been shy since he started to get minutes. I don't know. I was even projecting. I don't even know if he's on my list.
Yeah, he lost all those minutes. They're all
I don't know. Maybe this is a game where you can soak him up. I don't know.
If Grimes and one other guy is out and somehow Kemba starts, then I would consider.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to do it. He doesn't start.
Yeah, I don't think he would start. So I don't think that there's. Look, if you want to play Barrett or Randall, there's always a chance they hit something. But it's not guys who have to make priorities. I do think this is a really tough matchup for centers. I also don't think there's any such thing as a tough matchup for Jokic. So when Jokic is going to be lower owned, and I just think Jokic has more paths to there's no way for him to really it's really hard for him to get less than 55 in a game. And it's very easy for him to get up to 70 just in the nature of the way he plays. I think he's a phenomenal play on FanDuel because it's very easy to get him in. And it'll be easy to get him in on DraftKings, but it's a question of prioritizing him versus Luka and all this, and both in potential blowout spots. Maybe we even go back to Embiid because of all that. But those guys are all interesting. I do like Jokic. I don't see anybody else as being a particularly good play in this game, unless we hear a bunch of Knicks are sitting or something like that.
Yeah, I'm doing it, by the way. If this is a showdown somehow, I'm going to play Kemba. That's what I'm going to do.
Look, the one thing I like about the Kemba thing is that if he gets hot, I think he can earn the minutes. And if they're down and he's making threes, that also means, he's only at 4,100. He can get there. It's just
quickly played 24 minutes last night. He's on, and he 24 minutes last night. Burks played 31 minutes last night. For some reason. Boy, this I don't know. I'm not going to play him on the 10 gamer. But if there's a showdown, I'll probably get into this Kemba.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand it for that kind of a situation for sure. Milwaukee and at my Lakers here. This is I'm kind of excited about this actual game.
Yeah, why not?
And I'm sort of shocked by Giannis being projected as low because I don't think Giannis. I know the numbers haven't been quite the same as the other studs, but he, in my opinion, especially with the power forward eligibility, I think he's right there with these guys. The Lakers are still a good matchup for him. And people will say, oh, Giannis versus Davis. No, it's not always going to match up like that. And by the way, it's not the same Anthony Davis. And I'm not even entirely sure it matters all that much with Giannis. It's just we haven't seen that monster game while they've all been healthy. But they've all been, he's there every time. And mostly there's a lot of blowouts they play in. This game stays close. Giannis is a really interesting play, as is LeBron on the other side for me. I don't think I could play Anthony Davis in this matchup, but it would be basically LeBron and Giannis as my only interest. And by the way, that doesn't feel all that bad if you got all your value right and you're heading towards 10 o'clock and you've got Giannis and LeBron and maybe you get 150 out of the two of them. That's definitely on the table. So I think LeBron is a solid play and his price is just comfortable enough. At 10-4, at the 10-5, the Lakers are trying to win games. This is an important game. I'm sure this is a nationally televised game, even though I haven't double checked, but I'm sure it is. I sort of like LeBron here and Giannis, but again, it's just a matter of prioritizing. And those guys are a little bit behind the other guys for me, but they'll also be, especially Giannis will be lower owned. So I don't mind that. I don't think I can get to the Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis today. Even
so, Drew Holiday, he's not the one that always comes into LA and.
He does play well in LA, and he does coming back to LA, but it's not. At 8K, he did put up 60 in the last game, so I probably shouldn't just dismiss him. But it just feels like too much to pay for him. It's a good spot. He's okay. I think he's okay.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you could end up doing reverse Big T. You could play Davis and LeBron and Giannis, and then just play all the 3K Portland guys and just play nothing until 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I hope that you guys don't do that, but I understand. It's just trying to prioritize. Like these are a lot of guys who I would have interest in, but I can't talk through them on these slates because there's just too much goodness out there that with other guys that are really getting a boost, and these guys really aren't at all, either team. So that's my only issue with that.
Yeah, just for the record, I do like Giannis tonight, and I like LeBron.
Yeah.
And I just because I got to do one with both. I mean, I just have to do one. I mean, it's that could certainly be a thing, you know.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to do one for sure.
I'm in on that idea for sure. The next game is really weird because we have a ton of question marks.
What do we got? I didn't pay attention to that one.
Beverly, Russell, Reed, and Prince are all questionable. Prince, by the way, who has destroyed all of our Minnesota stuff because we've been playing, except for the last game, we got hurt.
I told you there was going to be a time where Torrey Prince made somebody all
but
money.
He didn't, like, even still, like he made 6 out of 9 threes. He made, what did he make? It's at one point he made 14 out of 19 threes, 11 out of 15 threes, and they still don't give him any more time. He just plays his 24 minutes, and that's even if he plays at all. So I don't even know if he will, especially if Russell's back. I don't know if he will, but right now it's, if they're all out, if we can find that information beforehand, Edwards or Towns have a ceilings, and this is a great matchup, but I don't think it's a priority. Without Deere and Fox on the other side, Halliburton, Mitchell, and to some extent Harrison Barnes are interesting to me. But the guy who I really think is maybe a little underprojected, and because of what he's been doing lately, but this is again a premium matchup. I don't mind the idea of playing Richaun Holmes. Like, think about it, Richaun Holmes.
Well, that's not what I was expecting. Okay.
I think Richaun Holmes is like, I mean, think about him versus Şengün. Like, the minutes upside is higher for Holmes. Şengün has been better per minute, but this is this is like the nut matchup, like for Holmes specifically. Holmes or Buddy Hield, if you want to take shots, I just feel like you're better off just staying with the main guys, Mitchell, Halliburton being the top two in this game.
That's where I thought you were going. I would be Buddy Hield at 4,800 at small forward eligible. I don't know. I mean,
it's doable, yeah, for sure.
I mean, he certainly hasn't gotten there in months, but
he's been worse without Fox. It's weird.
January 16th, that wasn't that long ago.
That was
45. Yeah, 45.
Yeah, he made 5 out of 9 threes.
Well, that's what you need. I mean,
Right. No, and he's on, like, he's definitely a large field in play kind of a guy. It's, the price is low enough where I think you can definitely do it. And he's probably safe for like 20 something ish. You know what I mean? It's not like he's going to necessarily wreck your lineups, but it does feel like, I don't know, like we're trying to make something out of something we don't, and Bagley may be back tonight too. So just kind of tough to know what to do exactly here other than Mitchell and Halliburton, but I don't mind the idea of playing Buddy Hield and hoping he makes 6-7 threes.
all right. So Simons, I want you to rank these guys for me. Simons, McLemore, Ellerby, Dennis Smith Jr., Nurkic, the Little's out. That other guy, the Trenton Wofford. I guess those are all. I think all these guys are to some degree in play, and we have to figure out. Oh, and sorry, and probably the chalkiest of them all maybe would be Justice Winslow. I'm not even sure, but yeah, you could play 3 of these guys, 4 of these guys, and certainly be well within your rights. And it is a late game, so you could hold off and see exactly how you want to attack this one later. But like with that said, you're not going to know the starters until later. Well, wait a minute. You know you're going to get Simons starting. You know you'll get Nurkic starting.
You'll probably get Ellerby starting.
You probably get Ellerby starting. Then I imagine Winslow, but I can't confirm that.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one to confirm yet. But either
but you know
way,
you're going to get minutes for Dennis Smith, right?
was that?
You know you'll get some minutes for Dennis Smith, right?
Yeah, you'll get some minutes and you'll get some definite usage for him too. You know, I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know for sure who's going to start, but I do think that the way that I've got it projected right now, I would say that Winslow is the harder one to fade, but because of his price and everything. But like at the same time, it's not like he plays out there and he goes and tries to torch everybody. But he's got, like, if you don't have him, he might get 40 and you could be in trouble. He's the one I feel the most that way about, assuming that he's starting, of course, and going to play about all these minutes. I like the Watford idea as a pivot because I think there's a chance that it could be him. But again, you can make these late swaps. This is going to be a late decision. You could just switch them one for each other. DSJ, probably like, I think it's okay. And I think McLemore's okay, but you're still counting on them doing a lot. But I think I like DSJ a little better than I like McLemore, but McLemore has the, could end up making, again, he could be another one for 6 or 7 threes. This is why it's hard to play guys like Buddy Hield tonight, because we've got a much better situation for these guys. And, they're outright supposed to outscore him by a pretty good amount. So I guess I'd rank, Simmons feels pretty safe to me. I think this is a pretty good spot for him. And I think Nurkic is in a good spot, but I don't think it's like a must play for Nurkic. I think Simmons is in a good spot. I like Winslow. I guess if it goes Winslow, assuming that it goes, then Simmons, then Ellaby, then Smith, then McLemore, then Watford. That's the way I would have him ranked.
And I presume it would be nice. It would be nice to run it back maybe with Cole Anthony.
Yeah, Cole Anthony or Jalen Suggs, I think, are both viable. And again, you're going to have it gives you late switchability. And I like Wendell Carter Jr. has really been coming on strong.
Yeah.
And matchup doesn't scare me a ton. I know he didn't have as big a games last couple games, but this is, the Magic are favored on the road, guys. And at the same time, Portland traded their whole team and they're only a 1.5 point underdog. So this is going to be a weird situation. All of the guys in this game are in play. I like the idea of trying to stack up these later games. You can play the Portland with one of the Magic and then do the LeBron Giannis thing if you want to. You could mix in some Jokic in there. That's sort of the way I'm going to look. And Davion Mitchell and Halliburton in the other game. Like, I just think it's better to wait, especially because there's a trade deadline. We don't know who's going to be starting. All these things are like going to dictate the slate. So the main thing is to give, even if a guy projects better in the earlier games, try to every hour, like give him like 5 more fantasy points to a guy in the later game or something.
Yeah.
It's just, you're going to want to buy that extra time unless we hear really early, which is really rare on some of these other guys. Like we mentioned about Luka earlier being a good play, but even the fact that he's at 8:30 and Jokic is at 9, what if, you get any sort of late information from any of these guys in the later games being out, all of a sudden, if anybody, let's say Harrison Barnes gets traded or something like that, which is totally possible, Halliburton then becomes an even better play. What I mean? And D'Angelo Russell's out. Well, that makes Towns and Edwards still at low ownership really interesting play. So it's late stacking, but that's the way I would treat this slate. I do want to say the guys who I've highlighted who I like the most. I still really like Brandon Ingram. I like him better on FanDuel. Same thing with Jokic. Winslow, DSJ, Watford, McLemore, Simmons, in whatever order. I named my order just a minute ago, but all of these guys very strongly in play. And Sabonis or Duarte, if no Brogdon, or Duarte, I should say. Trey is a really good spend up as well, who's a little bit cheaper than the other ones. The entire Brooklyn team, but I guess you'd say Patty Mills and Edwards, I guess, would be the priorities if you wanted to play the earlier value. Marcus Smart, I think, is a really good value play, even though he's 5,100. You don't think of him as value, but he's 5,100. That's a little too cheap for him. Kevin Porter Jr., Jokic, Giannis, LeBron, Mitchell, and Halliburton. Those are the guys who I'm sort of going to be building around today.
Yeah, we're just gonna wait. Unfortunately, or fortunately, you are gonna have to, you're gonna have to commit to some late swapping tonight because of the Portland. You just don't know who's starting. That's just kind of important news.
Or if anybody else is going to be traded by the time the trade deadline's over.
Or if anybody else is going to be traded. That's right. Now you could play like Embiid and get that position over with. You know what I mean? Because as I messed around with lineups here. You could play like 2.5 studs like really easily.
Really easily, yeah.
I put lineups together with literally like Luka and Embiid and even like a Sabonis just to fill the price in, and was able to fill that in like with ease. So that's about all we got for right now, right?
Yeah, for right now. And are you gonna be around at 6?
Yep.
Thank goodness, because it's gonna be fun to go through it. All right. Well, we'll see you guys at 6. I'll have my builds and my bets posted shortly. And let's make some money today, guys. Good luck, everybody.
Sounds good.